Hello my darlings, welcome to Fifth House Divination. My name is Kirsty and today we are going to be looking at the Marseille deck that I use on my channel. It's the only Marseille deck that I own. All of my other decks that I have are variations of the based on the English school system, where the pip cards, the 1 to 10 cards, have got pictures and diagrams on them. So the deck that I've got, I actually bought it for a Marseille course that I did last summer. So I've actually had this deck about 6 or 7 months now, and I was fortunate enough to study with a guy who himself had studied under one of the descendants of one of the original Marseille card manufacturers, the Converse family in Marseille. So I learnt with him, and I bought this course particularly for that course. I bought these cards particularly for that course. Actual good quality English kind of learning books, classes on the French system can be sort of a little bit difficult to come by. So I was really very fortunate to be able to study with Julien, who was very, very nice and very knowledgeable, very enthusiastic. So this deck that I have, as I say, it's actually a replica of an old deck that was discovered that dates from 1742. There's the run 1,500 copies off, and this is copy 460. Now, I love the presentation of this. It's in a really steady box, but within the box is these cards were originally, it's the Two of Pentacles on the back. The cards were originally, before box, they were presented in envelopes with the mark of the card makers on them. Absolutely gorgeous. I collect tarot decks because they all have their own energy about them, and within the it is also the case within the there are people who are experts on the Marseille decks. I know very little about it. This is the only deck I have, but there are people who collect them, and there's tiny nuances of colour, or tiny little differences. And that's the thing, all of the decks have, within the Marseille, within the modern English school, the Rider-Waite type style system, all of the decks have their own, you open them and they have their own energy, their own feel to them. All of my decks, I love them all, and I get a different vibe from all of them. And with this, I don't know, it feels like the Grande Dame. It's like the Duchess. Very sort of regal. I do love this very much. So that is really beautiful envelope. And then in the pack there is information card about one in English and one in French, and this actually tells you about the deck and people who created it and their movements. And then obviously it says that this particular one is a limited edition. What I love about the cards is that a lot of the card decks that I have are thinner, glossier. These are just, they're cardboard. They're good, thick, really thick cardstock. Really nice to handle. You really know you've got a hold of them. And then we've got the actual cards themselves. So we've got the majors, the Fool, the Magician, the Fool, the Magician, High Priestess, Empress, Emperor. Now, as I say, with the Marseille decks, if you're not familiar with them, there is a lot less action, a lot less pictures. So you are very much drawn to, when you're doing a reading with them, you are looking at the tiny little differences, the direction he's looking in. You know, if the cards change, what becomes what, as Julian used to like to say. And a lot of the decks, the Marseille decks, I think the colours are different, or there may be slight differences, so you really are looking for detail. The modern English school of cards, they have a lot of diagrams, and then there is so much, there are so many correspondences layered onto them. By correspondences, I mean, you know, linking the tarot card to the Kabbalah, to astrology, to numerology. And while that's really interesting, and as a reader, it gives you a lot of information to work with, and a lot of creativity and places to go with the card, I found that sometimes it's too much. And the beauty of this is the Chariot, the beauty of the Marseille deck is that you're stripping it back, you're stripping back to the actual tarot. You're stripping everything else off. You're stripping off the astrology, you're stripping off the numerology, you're stripping off, you know, I mean, I'm sure there are some, you know, there are systems and things within the tarot, and the guys that are sort of specialists in the Marseille will probably, you know, they'll be able to tell you a lot more. I mean, I'll probably all be shouting at me now. But what you have with the reason that I love the Marseille deck is because it is just the tarot. It is the tarot before it had all its, before it got kind of poked around with, and Le Pendu, the Hanged Man, before, you know, people started messing around with it. So studying, I really enjoyed studying the cards with Julien, because it just takes you back to the fundamental meanings. It takes you back to looking for the little nuances. It makes you, with the modern English school of cards, it's really easy just to look at the surface picture. And I mean, it's brilliant because it does give you stories, but it's just, yeah, I think they say that it's just looking. And this is something I remember with the tarot, was, are they falling out or are they picking things up? So the main differences, actually we've gone past them, but the main differences between the Rider-Waite and the Marseille is obviously there's less pictorial. The drawings are slightly different. The strength card and the strength card, where are we? La Force and Justice. Originally, which obviously the Marseille is the original, they were number 8 and number 11 accordingly. And then in the early 1900s, when the cards were modernised, as it were, into the English school, these were swapped around. So they're now Strength, or La Force, is now 8 and Justice is 11. So that's one. The other big difference is actually the pip cards, which we'll come to shortly. That's la lune, the moon, the sun, le jugement, judgment, and oh, she's upside down, the world. So with the Marseille, a lot of people, I think there is a certain level of intimidation because they don't have the, so this is the swords. They don't have pictures. You have to get really good with your Roman numerals. And also what you're actually looking for is the difference in the growth and the expansion as they go through. So while numerology is actually quite important part of the French system, you know, 4's a stable energy, 5's are, so the even numbers are stabilizing energies, the odd numbers are sort of active movement. But yeah, and I think the lack of pictures, sorry, making the camera wobble, on the pips is probably, and also it's the lack of pictures, and there's also, like I say, it's quite difficult to find a teaching for the or good quality books for the Marseille stuff in English. I'm sure if you go onto the continent, to France and Italy and places like that, it's not as difficult. So, and then they've got these are the court cards that you see quite a fair old bit on my channel. I do use these on my Instagram connection section. So these are the ones. Anyway, I absolutely love this deck. I think the beauty of the Marseille. Oh dear, I keep thinking Versailles deck is that it is pure tarot. It is tarot in its purest form. It's energy in its purest form. It feels it just feels unmucked about with. It feels like a duchess, you know. It's absolutely beautiful. I love the feel of the cards. I love the colours. I love the simplicity. And yeah, I really like it, and I do enjoy using it. So anyway, as I say, I've got these a replica of a 1742 deck, but there are lots of other decks out there, lots of decks that are relatively low in cost. They will all appear similar on the surface, but when you develop an eye for them and when you start looking at them, you'll actually see the small differences. And there is a whole community of Marseille card lovers, so who know the history and the tiny little variations and what they all mean. So guys, if you can get access to some quality education on the Marseille deck, on the French school, I would really recommend it, because you're kind of going back to the roots of a system that we love, and studying it in its purest form. So anyway, thank you very much. I hope you got something from this. I'll speak to you soon.